And we're back now with page 2 of Face the Nation and more of my interview with Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner. Here's what he told me when I asked him where he thought unemployment would be on Election Day.
Well, if the economy continues to gradually strengthen like it's been doing, then the unemployment rate will be lower and more Americans will be back to work. You know, growth is, looks pretty broad-based. Most of the available evidence has been pretty encouraging. But, you know, we still live in a dangerous, uncertain world. Europe's still going through a really tough economic crisis, and Iran is still a risk factor in oil markets. Those things could hurt us still. But if you look at the economy as a whole against all the available evidence, not just the job growth, you're seeing a pretty encouraging signs of resilience. You know, you see manufacturing pretty strong, energy very strong, agriculture quite strong, high tech very strong, exports pretty strong, and those are encouraging things. But we got a long way to go, a lot of work to do, and we should be working together to make the economy stronger.
Would you put a number at where you think it will be? Or
I wouldn't.
Let's talk about the plan that the president says that anybody, the so-called Buffett Rule, anybody who makes over $1 million a year should pay at least 30% in income taxes. You know, people on the other side, the Republicans, even one independent analyst told us that this could actually wind up hurting the economy by stifling investment and growth, that this is going to discourage people from starting up new businesses, because basically what it is raising the capital gains tax and raising the tax on investments. How do you respond to that?
No credible basis for that argument, in my judgment. If you just look at the economics of it, and let's talk about the substance and merits of that argument. You know, we face a lot of challenges still as a country. We have to get the economy growing, repair the damage from the crisis, get more people back to work, and we got to make sure we put in place a balanced plan to bring down our long-term deficits. As part of that, we're going to have to cut spending across the government. You know, we've already committed to cut $2 trillion in spending, but that only goes part of the way. We need to go further, do more with less across the government. But we do not see a feasible, economically sensible, or fair way to do this and still preserve room for investments in education, in infrastructure, help protect the safety net, help strengthen Medicare for seniors without asking the richest Americans to pay a somewhat larger share of their income in taxes. And we think the most effective way to do that is to limit their ability to take advantage of deductions and exclusions, and that's what this rule would do. And I don't think there is a plausible path to tax reform, not a plausible path to fiscal reform, that doesn't recognize the reality that we cannot afford to extend these tax cuts for the most fortunate Americans. We just can't afford to do it. We can't afford to borrow to do it anymore, and we have to preserve room to these other priorities. And as part of that, again, we're going to propose to raise a modest amount of additional revenue from the most fortunate Americans.
You know, the truth is, you and I both know that this has absolutely no chance of passing the Senate, and even less chance of passing the House. Isn't it just kind of a publicity stunt to get the Republicans on record as being against it?
I've heard that concern, but I don't understand it. I mean, just because they oppose this doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do, and we're going to keep pushing for things that are right.
No, I didn't say it was or wasn't the right thing to do. I'm just saying. But
remember, they fought us on the payroll tax. That was the right thing to do. They're resisting funding infrastructure. That's the right thing to do. They've resisted all the things we do to take the economy out of the crisis and restart economic growth. Those were the right thing to push for. If we don't push for things that make sense, then we're not governing. That's our responsibility in this case. And again, you're going to find broad support for this across the American people because there is no other way to meet the broad challenges of the country.
Did you actually hold out some hope that this would pass this year?
Well, I certainly hope it will, but you know, I know it's a political moment. It's a tough thing to do. But you know, extending unaffordable tax cuts for the most fortunate Americans is not a popular thing to do. It's not a fiscally responsible thing to do. It's not economically necessary thing to do. So, you know, our hope is we make the case. We're going to keep pushing. Yeah, we're going to do that in the economy across the board, even if we face continued opposition from the president's opponents.
Mr. Secretary, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Nice
Are you planning to stay past the first term, by the way?
You know, the president asked me if I would stay, and I said I'd stay to the end of the first term.
And that's it?
And that seems like the right amount of time for me.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being with us.
Nice to see you.